Unwanted.
The X-Files is one of those rare shows that come to define an entire generation. If you were around like me in the 90s, you understand how crazy everybody was about this show. And for good reason, because it's a great show.
I've seen enough, Mulder. Let's go.
Yeah, okay. But somewhere out there, something is watching us. There are alien forces acting in ways we can't perceive.
Its themes are deep and complex, but for me, what really sells this show are the characters. So in case you're unfamiliar, or you haven't watched it yet, here's a brief rundown. FBI agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully work in a department within the Bureau called the X-Files. Their duties are to investigate cases of unknown or paranormal origin that the rest of the Bureau either can't solve or deem too ridiculous to spend their resources on. Now, Scully is a medical doctor who was initially assigned to the department to spy on Mulder for the FBI's top brass. She's there to debunk his work. Mulder is an expert in criminal psychology who was willfully reassigned to the X-Files to search for his missing sister Samantha, whom he believes was abducted by aliens as a child. Now, initially, there's a fair bit of animosity between these characters, and that's understandable considering that they were first placed at odds with each other. However, as the show progresses, they learn to see things from the other's perspective. This is developed in part because of the great on-screen chemistry between Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny.
Partay.
However, I must remind you this goes against the Bureau's policy of male and female agents consorting in the same hotel room while on assignment.
Try any of that tailhook crap on me, Scully. I'll kick your ass.
It's this characterization that elevates the show from a good TV show to a staple of 90s pop culture. Characterization is the creation or construction of a fictionalized character. When we see Mulder, we see a person who is brilliant and driven, but is also naive and even arrogant at times. His unrelenting search for the truth comes from a place of passion, and on more than one occasion he has become blinded by that passion. He needs to know the truth so badly that sometimes he's willing to believe anything to get there.
Please, will you just hear me? I have never met anyone so passionate and dedicated to a belief as you. It's so intense that sometimes it's blinding. But there are others who are watching you, who know what I know, and whereas I can respect and admire your passion, they will use it against you.
Juxtaposed to Mulder, Scully, brilliant in her own right, is the epitome of pure skepticism. The truth for her is defined by empirical data. After spending so much of her life as a woman of science, it's understandable that science would be the standard by which she separates fact from fiction. The downside to this is that it makes her inflexible in her worldview, and closes her off to different, albeit unorthodox, ideas. Oftentimes on TV, people are simplified and exaggerated. These character traits that define them can easily become a prison. As the show progresses, characters become predictable. That's not to say that development can't happen, but the characters are never shaken to the core of what makes them who they truly are. A good example of this is in the show How I Met Your Mother.
Daddy's home.
Barney Stinson is arguably the same person up until the final moments of his character arc in the series finale. Over time, we've seen him develop into a more thoughtful friend and partner, and he certainly eased up on the womanizing. But his bro ways are never internally challenged. It seemed at one point like they would be, when he symbolically burned the playbook, signaling to Robin, and the audience, that he has put that life behind him.
Prove your loyalty to Patrice by burning the playbook. And actually burn it. You don't need it anymore.
However, this is undercut when he rewrites the playbook the night before his wedding. The X-Files avoids this by using clever character writing and how that writing is portrayed in the situations the agents find themselves in. Dana Scully, having all of the traits previously mentioned, is also a devout Catholic. Being a generally private person, Scully doesn't speak openly about her faith often, and typically doesn't let it interfere with her professional work, with the only outward expression of it being a small gold cross necklace. Naturally, her transfer to the X-Files exposes her to far more situations where the paranormal nature of her work directly challenges or validates her religious views.
He was rather abnormal in life. Maybe he's decomposing abnormally.
Well, isn't a saint or a holy person just another term for someone who's abnormal?
Do you really believe that?
I believe in the idea that God's hand can be witnessed. I believe he can create miracles, yes.
Mulder, on the other hand, doesn't believe in organized religion, and thinks most religious acts were caused by insanity.
Religion has masqueraded as the paranormal since the dawn of time to justify some of the most horrible acts in history.
I was raised to believe that God has his reasons, however mysterious.
He may well have his reasons, but he seems to use a lot of psychotics to carry out his job orders.
So, when apparent miracles or acts of religious revelation occur, they switch points of view, with Scully being the believer and Mulder the skeptic.
Why did you feel you had to lie on your police report?
I thought it would be a better explanation under the circumstances.
What you're really saying is that you didn't want to go on record admitting that you believed in Boggs. The Bureau would expect something like that from spooky Mulder, but not Dana Scully.
Essentially, this allows the characters to understand what it's like to deal with themselves, constantly being questioned and never opening up to new ideas.
How is it that you're able to go out on a limb whenever you see a light in the sky, but you're unwilling to accept the possibility of a miracle, even when it's right in front of you?
I wait for a miracle every day, but what I've seen here has only tested my patience, not my faith.
Throughout the show, this enables characters to gain a deeper understanding of one another, and further traits to bleed outside of their standard characterization as simple archetypes. Mulder and Scully both have this concept of faith that makes them more alike than they realize. While hers is a religious faith, his is a faith that through his actions he can find his sister and satisfy his guilt. As the show progresses, the characters slowly develop into an amalgam of both the believer and the skeptic. Scully, for her part, realizes that she can no longer ignore the things that she's seen with her own eyes that defy explanation and learns to reconcile that with her faith. And Mulder comes to understand how much he's been manipulated because of his willingness to believe, and once he finds Samantha, he's no longer driven by the faith that she's still out there, but by the responsibility that he has to uncover the truth, because he's the only one with the ability and the authority to do so. This simple but brilliant writing is one of the reasons this show has stood the test of time, and draws new viewers to this day. By pushing the characters beyond one-dimensional stereotypes, the theme of believer versus skeptic is more deeply explored. Modern writers shouldn't be afraid to push their characters into uncomfortable situations that shake them to their core, because life is messy, and it makes those characters feel more real and more relatable. So if you haven't watched The X-Files, I highly encourage you to do so. It's great, trust me, you'll thank me.
It's open.
What?
It's unlocked.
That's weird. I'm sure I locked it.
Must be an X-File.
So, well, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching, and check back later for all things Rocky.